Chapter 13 is all about the final move-outs. In other words, the FMO procedures. Before we dive in, I want to remind all the staff, on-site managers, regional managers, leasing agents, documentation, documentation, documentation. Again, documentation is key for move-ins, for tenancy relationships, and most importantly for move-outs. Pursuant to California Civil Code Section 1950.5, and this section code is very important, so I'm going to repeat it once again. California Civil Code Section 1950.5. All security deposits must be returned within 21 days of giving up possession. In other words, once a tenant leaves, the company has 21 days, no more than 21 days, to give the tenants back their security deposit minus any expenses. Within these 21 days, we must furnish the tenant by personal delivery or by first-class mail, postage prepaid, a copy of an itemized statement including the basis for, copies of documents showing charges incurred to repair or to clean the premises, and the amount of any security received and the disposition of the security, and shall return any remaining portion of the security to the tenant. In other words, an itemized copy of what the original deposit was, what charges were made against that deposit for cleaning, for fixing, repair, maintenance of, let's say, the blinds, or let's say the flooring, paint, etc. And then we have to give them the disposition of the difference of their security deposit back to them. It is very important to note that regular wear and tear cannot be charged to a tenant, but damages can. When we're talking about paint or those type of situations where the wall has scratches and things like that, it's considered wear and tear if a tenant has been living in the unit for over 2 years. You cannot charge them, therefore, for paint or for minor dinks on the wall. But if a tenant has been there less than 2 years, then we can charge them for paint. The final documents we are required for the FMO are reflected in the FMO checklist. First, we need a move-out intention, meaning a tenant gave us a 30-day notice of their intent to move out, or we provided a notice to move out to the tenant. Early termination is also valid as evidence of them moving out. And an early termination means they breached their contract and left without giving us notice. In these type of situations, we will charge them in accordance to our lease agreement for the early termination fee. In our leases currently, it's 2 months of rent. Another early termination is a military order or a transfer to another unit within our communities, or an unlawful detainer, meaning we started a UD procedure because they failed to pay rent or breached their contract many times. Or finally, they canceled a move-in and we still have to do the FMO proceedings. Secondly, we must include the first page of the signed lease. If no lease was signed because we took over a property, then we need to provide the estoppel certificate in the FMO documents. Third, we need a full tenant ledger initialed and reviewed by our regional manager. 4, we will need the move-in, move-out checklist completed by the OnSite manager. When we talked about the move-in process, we talked about this form, which is the move-in checklist. We would print out the exact move-in, move-out checklist, and we leave the move-in the way it was initially, and we would just do the move-out portion of the form. And we would want to compare and contrast from the move-in to the move-out. Now, keep in mind that the tenant must sign both the move-in checklist form, which is the same form, and then again, the move-out checklist form. So it is very important that on-site managers annotate as much information as they can in these forms. These are very important for legal proceedings. Number 6, we must have move-out pictures with date taken under a new inspection section in AppFolio, which is located under tasks on the right-hand side of the menu in AppFolio. On-site managers, please remember that when you take these pictures, you must have a little piece of paper reflecting the unit number, the date, and the tenant's name, so that if we ever go to court, we can show the judge further evidence by the piece of paper reflecting date, tenant, and inspection information. Number 7, there must be a move-out video. This move-out video must show all the appliances working or not working, the hot water being turned on by the on-site manager, a close-up to all the imperfections in the unit. For example, if the wall is scratched or the floor is scratched or any other issues, we must have the person taking the video, which is typically either our photographer or our on-site manager, showing all the upfront issues with a property and showing the entirety of the property. This way we can show the judge, look judge, this is the way the unit looked when the tenant moved in, and this is the way the unit looks now that the tenant is moving out. And as you can see, there are a lot of issues, or there are not a lot of issues. But this video is essential in showing the judge why we are charging the tenants what we are withholding from their security deposit. So it is very important to do a thorough and in-depth job with this video. On-site managers, do not forget to send the video to the person responsible to archiving these in Google Drive. Number 8, copy of the bills and job-related work orders for which we are charging tenants his, her, or their security deposit, including but not limited to Atlantico Builders, Home Depot, etc. But the invoices we're sending are not the Home Depot invoices or the Ferguson invoices, but rather the Atlantico Builder invoices, because they charge us for labor and material, and we charge the tenant what we get charged by our vendor, Atlantico Builders. Number 9, we also want to provide the final RUBS charges for the period that they stayed in the unit. Remember that RUBS is charged 2 months before you actually get your statement. So we wanna charge the tenants for the last 2 or 3 weeks of their tenancy. And this we do through our RUBS vendor agreement. Number 10, and very important, once we have all the evidence reflected in the videos and in the pictures and through our work orders, we need to send a balance letter, and this must be initialed by the accountant. Number 11, we need a picture of the refund letter and check mailed within 21 days. Again, pursuant to state law, we need to send it within 21 days. But per our internal policy, we like to have this FMO letter sent out within 10 business days. Finally, we must upload the completed FMO to the tenant ledger, which includes all these 11 attachments. On-site managers, I know that it is very difficult sometimes to know exactly how much we're going to charge a tenant when they move out before we actually complete the work. This is why it's so important to have the handyman give us an estimate on labor and material. But keep in mind that the accountant must use the actual expenses incurred by the company. In other words, on-site managers, when you're starting the turnover proceedings with the handyman, in other words, the tenant has left the unit and we are getting ready to charge them for the expenses that we have or will incur, we do have the handyman give us an estimate on the expenses, but then we wait until the actual work is completed by our vendor so that then we can charge the tenant the actual expenses incurred.